Hi there, welcome to episode number 41, actually. We're continuing on with a conversation that I'm having with Michael from Signature Building Company down here in, where are we now? Druin. Oh, I've got to remember that one. But yeah, we're going to continue on with the conversation with Michael and go through what some of the experiences that he's had as a carpenter by trade, and also the things that he's been through with building his home and doing that from a homeowner's perspective, which is going to be really beneficial for you guys there. So join me with the second half of this conversation. Thank you very much. Let's jump into it.
You know,
I didn't see you looking at that, and I'm like, I wonder what's happened there.
It annoys me every time, and I can see it right now from this spot, and I can see the glancing light hitting it, and I can see the different shade of paint, and it's really annoying.
So did they actually paint the house and then patch it? Oh.
Yeah, and then they just put a little bit of coat. In the end, I was like, no, I'm not happy with that. 6 coats on that wall, the whole hallway wall, to cover it, but the plaster was still bad.
Yep.
So it's just bad quality, bad supervision, and I definitely think though that weekly meetings or at least fortnightly.
Yep.
Often.
Yep.
Times.
Often. Yeah, definitely.
You'd be at meeting more times than sometimes you might see your family. But we only saw our supervisor 3 times, the whole build.
And so what was the length of time for the actual build itself? Not the pre-sales and all that sort of thing, but just the build time.
It was a 10-month build.
10-month build?
Yeah. For this 27 square house.
Yep.
Yeah. On a timeline that most volume builders would be looking at more like 5 or 6 months to build this. Yep. So the supervisor I know was further away from this. It wasn't part of his sort of area he worked in. So it was sort of like this, just throw that in there. And so it was out of his way, and he didn't see it very often, things like that. And that's what pushed it out.
Yeah. But even with the distance and that sort of thing, we've learnt a lot of things with COVID, that things can be managed at a distance.
Definitely.
So that, to me, and with my business, I don't see that as being an issue. So it really comes down to, well, it doesn't matter the distance you're at. You still should have been able to manage it competently. And I mean, come on, if you're having you can have a meeting with a client on Zoom.
Yep.
Right? You can still do that. Even if you say, look, I can't meet you on site, I'm going to be 20 minutes late, but how about we jump on the phone, jump on the Zoom, and we start having the meeting.
Yep.
And you can, and anything that comes up, we can see that on Zoom, and away you go. Yep. That's the technology that we've got now, where we can do that sort of thing, and so that's where sometimes I get a little sort of frustrated, and I'm like, come on guys, you can do better.
And they're mega money systems that they have in process. Mega systems that run most of their jobs for them.
Yes.
It's funny that happened when their iPad tells them how to build it.
Yes.
The order that it has to be done in.
Yep. Thank you guys. I've got to cut it off short there with the first episode with Michael.
You say, the frame's
it's been a really good chat, and there's going to be a second part to this, and I hope you can join us for that.
Yes.
Coming in next week. Yeah, well, join in. Funny, and don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, do all that sort of thing, and share this around as well if you're getting some benefit from a month or so learning about what it's like to be out there. You've met building Toby and the guys at BuildGrid, and being able to sort of bring that sort of builders level of system and trades, which is be able to assist you to get sort of saying where they've got it all planned out and it's nutted out. All the socials, the supervisors being told sharing everything when they need to call something out of everything. So thanks, and we'll see you next week. For a long time, they've probably advanced the system a lot more, but BuildGrid's sort of covering that gap for guys like us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's brilliant. So we're starting to be able to do that. But these volume builders, like they've got everything laid out in front of them, and the supervisors have got it there. It's a bit of a cop out to homeowners.
Definitely.
That it's not being done. Okay. So trades might let you down, and we know that trades, the amount of guys that are out there that are like, oh, yeah, I'll do it, and then someone will forget about it and don't show up because it's mismanagement, and we know that. And so you go through a DBLC, you get your registration, a lot of that disappears because people learn, I've got to do this, and I can't just stuff around. Absolutely. But the supervisors, none of them are really sort of actively doing anything to help these guys
No skin in the game.
No skin in the game. That's right. And the volume builders aren't doing that. They're like, oh, it's just, here's a piece of paper. That's the job. Go do it. Out they go. And whether the job's done Mickey Mouse, sometimes nobody's even checking it. And that's, for me, like homeowners, when people get upset and they're going through the build process and they may not have any trade background at all. They might just be, let's just say, a nurse, and the husband's, I don't know, they work at a supermarket or something like that. So they've got no skin in the game when it comes to a build at all. They don't know the processes. They don't understand any of that at all. But I guess you could say you can see their frustration when it gets to a point, and they might not know anything about what's happening with the frame, but they might walk in somewhere and go, oh, this is feeling really great, when they're doing, let's just say the builder does do a weekly or fortnightly meeting with the client. They're walking through a frame on the house. They don't know what they're looking at. And they're relying on the supervisor, and sometimes the supervisor doesn't know that much at all. And we've seen that as well. The fun part about it is that whole aspect of they're walking through, they've got no idea. Who do they then call on to actually find out if things are being done right?
Private inspectors.
Private inspectors, and we're seeing more and more of that sort of thing happening, which to me, like, that doesn't worry me. If someone wants to get a private inspector to come through, cool, no worries. One of the things that I do also say to a lot of people that are building with us is the aspect of, you are the ones that are engaging a building surveyor. Not us. That's the legislation now. It got changed. We're not the ones that can legally engage a building surveyor. With that also comes the other side of the sword, where if you're the one engaging the building surveyor and then you go and get a private building inspector, you're doubling up.
Exactly.
But a lot of people don't realise that.
No.
And the volume builders, we know, they don't necessarily have that education system built into their business model that tells clients that.
Zero education.
And we know that. So that one of the reasons doing a podcast like this is for that. We want everyone to know that, hey, look, it's not a dark art to build a house, but getting the information to the right people at the right time is pivotal. So you go through the building surveyor, you get you get the building surveyor who does the permit, they do all that sort of thing, but they've got inspectors, and sometimes the private inspector that you might go and sort of engage during the build and just to check over things, sometimes that private inspector is working for the building surveyor. And that's the most common thing to actually happen. But most homeowners don't realise that. So who should be the first port of call? It should be, okay, well, I'll go over to the building surveyor. Can I get a copy of the inspection report? Has this been checked? Has that been checked? You can go through it, and all the Australian standards are there to make sure that the minimum's been done. Okay, you can also go through with a copy of the Australian, not the Australian standards, but something that references the Australian standards, which is the Guides to Standards and Tolerances. You can walk through a house with that. How many volume builders hand that out to clients?
No. They don't want you to know.
No, they don't
at all. Especially at the very end when they're trying to get their final payment and hand over.
They
don't want you to know about the distance you should be off the wall for the looking at a defect or whatever it may be. But just quickly going back to the surveyors, I think the volume builders have shot themselves in the foot as well with this. That, at least in our case, when we were going through all the paperwork, it was the appointing the surveyor. And they have a sheet that has 4 or 5 surveyors, and they say, these are people we commonly work with. You can select one of these if you like, or here's a section to fill out the surveyor that you want. So automatically, if you don't know any better, you go, oh, they're paying off this surveyor, or whatever, they've got a partnership with this surveyor. So then you automatically think, well, are they really working for me, or are they working for the builder?
Exactly right.
But they're always still working for you. That's their job.
That's right.
You know?
Yep. There's always that level of ambiguity when it comes to building surveyors and what they're actually doing and who they're working for. Under legislation, they're working for the homeowner. They're not working for the builder. And that's where I'll be straight up and I'll say, look, these are guys that we have worked with. If you want somebody else, that's fine. Yeah. And if you want to get a private inspection done down the line, no worries, bring it on. Yep. And like we've seen some of the guys on TikTok and Instagram, and don't get me wrong, I love seeing their videos. I love seeing some of the stuff that they pull up.
Awareness.
And it's the awareness of that. And that's where sometimes I'm like, oh, I'd love to see one of these guys come on my side. Yeah. If I'm doing something wrong, awesome. Pull me up on it and let's address it. Let's get it fixed. Yep. And so that it doesn't continue to happen, especially around things like waterproofing and all that sort of thing. We know how much of a turmoil comes in from any kind of waterproofing inside a home. So, but yeah, that's one of those things. Do you want to be doubling up on builder surveyor and inspection costs? Yep. Or do you want to just go, okay, well, here's a building surveyor. I can go out and I can actually talk to these guys before you make your decision. Why don't you call up, go through that list? Hey, how do you guys work with these guys? Yep. Can I get copies of all the inspection reports? Can I get this? I'm the one that's going to ultimately be paying you. And one of the fun parts about building surveyors is they're paid up front. Yeah. Yep. Before the job even starts. Yep. And so they've already got their money. So when it comes to it, who's holding them to account? And homeowners should be holding them to account because they're the ones paying for it.
Absolutely. And ultimately as well, funny part you say about those private inspectors you see on TikTok and things, they might pump out a video every day. Yep. For instance. Yep. But it's not like they've gone to one house that day and they've done one video and found this really shocking build. Yep. They've probably done 6 or 10 inspections a day. Yep. And especially if they're a little inspection, like a frame, there's not much to look at.
Well, there's not a lot to look at, but at the same time, they're going, at least they should be, going through and checking every single member to make sure that it's right.
Definitely, but they don't.
And they don't. And we know that a lot of the inspectors, they're being pumped by the builder to get it done, the building surveyor, who's, if you see a building surveyor actually come out of their office and go out and do an inspection themselves, that in itself is, if you can get it, it's gold, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some mobs that only employ people to do it.
Yes,
but there are a lot of surveyors subcontracted out.
Yep. Well and truly, and it's. I would like to see more information sort of go out there, especially around who and why building surveyors and inspectors, when they should be used, when you should be speaking to them, and all that sort of thing. Because if you go into a dispute with the builder over the final payments of the house or defects or anything like that, there are processes for going through that as well. Yes. As you probably know, it's the DBDRV. So what is it? The Domestic Building Dispute Resolution Victoria. Oh, yeah. I think I got that right.
I think you did, yeah.
Now, I've used that service before myself, and it all came down to an owner who was adamant that nothing was done to code. And one of the things with that service is that they have their own inspectors as well. People that will go out and do an inspection. You can be there as the builder, you can be there as the owner, you'll have yourself or an agent for yourself there while the inspection's being done. And you can point out whatever the issues might be, but ultimately that inspector's there, independent view, independent eyes to look over things. So that's one of the things that you can do when it comes to it. And ultimately, the DBDRV doesn't cost you anything like getting an independent inspector. Yes. And one of the things that builders do jump up and down about with the independent inspectors is that they can go through an entire house, but what's written down there ultimately
doesn't mean anything. They're not the one licensing the bill, regulating the bill.
Yep, that's right.
They have no say.
That's right.
And that's where there's a miscommunication, isn't there? Like, people don't actually know that these privates have no say.
That's right.
A lot of builders will do it in good faith. They'll do it to keep the client on side and happy. Yep. And some things they pick up might be a real concern. And there's no dramas, let's fix it.
Yep. That's right.
But the end of the day, they don't have any say at all.
And that's a scary thing when you sort of think about it, is people are going out and spending big bucks on some of these guys to find out that, oh, well, a little blemish on the wall that we're really concerned about isn't outside the Australian standards, but a private inspector might make a big song and dance about it and say, oh, this is
common.
And that's the most common thing, is little blemishes and that sort of thing. But when it is, okay, the water stop hasn't been put in around a shower.
Yep.
That right there should have been picked up by the inspector that's working for the surveyor.
Yes.
Well and truly, but it's not. No. Currently there's no inspections for waterproofing.
No.
In Victoria. There are in other states, but not in Victoria. And it'd be brilliant to actually see some of that sort of thing start happening. Whether it'll happen, I don't know.
Yeah.
How much do we have to jump up and down and make a song and dance about it? And yeah.
Powers that be, mate.
Oh yeah, well and truly. So yeah, the experience that you had here. How did you find the experience with the building surveyor after you sort of said yes or no to which one?
Really good. Actually, I've used them with contract carpentry, dealt with them a lot, and I went, of all the builders, of all the surveyors I've had over my time, these guys are the serious ones.
Yep.
And they were really good, you know. So I have no complaints about them.
Yep.
It's just things that they don't pick. You know, they're not going to pick plaster problems.
Yep.
You know, they're looking for structural issues. They're looking for drainage points not put in.
Yep.
Looking for downpipes hooked up to water, things like that. So, you know, you can't really say it's their fault with the finishes of the house.
Yes.
Because that's really not what they're looking for.
No,
they're
that's
looking
right.
for the things that don't make code.
Yep. Yeah. And so that's probably the defining factor in the difference between sort of your building surveyor and their inspector. Even though there is a final inspection, and some of those aspects should be done as part of a final inspection from the building surveyor, where it is checking over the finish of the plaster, because look, the Australian standards and the standards and tolerances show up that to get just the minimum, which is a level 4 finish on your plaster work, you have to have all these things. How many builders actually have those quality control checks?
Not many at all.
Right? And how many times as a homeowner could you go back to a builder and say, can I see the QC check for the plaster? Can I see the QC check for the waterproofing? Can I see this? Will they be able to bring it out? Some will, some won't.
Yeah.
And you can definitely ask a builder if they're going to be able to provide that. And really, should we be holding them to account for doing that? Bloody oath.
Yeah. And look, don't get me wrong, there are some really good volume builders, you know, and some of the big guys are really good in their QC checks.
Yep.
You know, they want to make sure they're not coming back, you know, and some that have really big warranties, they really put some effort into some of their houses, you know, especially around window details where it's a plaster reveal.
Yep.
They are putting some time over-engineering it because they don't want a structural warranty problem.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And windows and especially when you got plaster reveals going into windows, it's the first place. Water will find its way through.
Yep.
And I know I've seen some shockers some doozies over the years. But yeah, it's one of those things where sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You're not checking things out, and yeah, I really appreciate when I see guys doing the right thing and don't mind making a big song and dance about when it's been done right. When it's been done wrong, I try not to sort of amplify that and make a big song and dance out of it, because you can just end up with getting someone offside because the relationships are more important. But when you can help somebody to do better, it just means that the relationship can just get better from there. I know that I've appreciated all the builders that I've worked with when I was just doing carpentry, and they're like, oh, you've done this wrong. Do you reckon that there could be a way to fix that so that it's not wrong and it meets code and exceeds it in this way or that way, instead of just getting you stuffed this up, go and fix it.
Yeah.
And But some of them have been volume builders, and it's come down to the supervisor and who they are and how they operate and what their experience has been like in the past as well. Because there's some really good guys out there that know exactly what they're doing and how to get the best. And when you see those guys and the relationships that they have with their trades and then ultimately with their clients, it's chalk and cheese every single day of the week.
And I've worked with some volume supervisors that I'll move heaven and earth to help out because...
Yak Production.